Welcome to Scone Baking and Beyond. Hi, I'm Kathy and I enjoy making scones, muffins, cookies, and all sorts of delicious baked goodies. Growing up, one of my favorite donuts was maple bars. And now you can get maple bars with bacon on it. So that inspired me to make my maple bacon scone rolls. So let's bake. So the first thing we're going to do is grate our butter. And the reason why we grate our butter is because it gives it just the right size for when we blend it into our dry ingredients. And so we're going to get this up in the freezer and get it as cold as possible because we want to keep this butter as cold as possible so that it does steam before it melts. So I'm going to put this in the freezer. Okay, so while the grated butter is in the freezer, we're going to get our bacon mixture ready. So I have here 7 slices of bacon coarsely chopped. I'm going to put that in my pan. And my pan is heated at about medium-high heat. So we're going to get this bacon all cooked up. Okay, our bacon is cooked and now I'm ready to reserve about 3 tablespoons for later. Let me take out 3 tablespoons here. There we go. That looks good. We'll reserve that for later. And now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and 1/4 cup of chopped pecans. Get that nice and cooked in here. You're going to cook this for about 1 minute. Oh, doesn't that look good? That's going to be so good. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to turn off my heat and then transfer this to a paper towel lined plate, just to blot out all the extra oil. And once it's blotted, then we're going to put our bacon, pecan, brown sugar mixture into a bowl set aside for later. So now that the butter's in the freezer and we have made our bacon, brown sugar, pecan mixture, it's time to get to the dry ingredients. So we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I use unbleached all-purpose flour. I have a 1/4 cup of whole wheat pastry flour. Now I like adding whole wheat pastry flour for the nuttiness and the nutritious value of the whole wheat pastry flour, but I use pastry flour because it's light and it doesn't make my scones heavy. So now I'm going to put in 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And we're just going to get those dry ingredients all nicely mixed up. So now it's time to add the butter. This butter has had a nice amount of time to get all nice and frozen. So we're going to add this in. Use this here. Get all that butter in there. There we go. And because of grating it, I really don't have to even cut this in right now. I can just mix this up because this butter is at the right size for this scone. All I need to do is make sure that all the butter is covered with some flour mixture and that there aren't any clumps. Now to this, we're going to add our wet ingredients. I'm going to put that off to the side. For our wet ingredients, we're going to mix together. I have, oh, there's a piece of butter there. Move that off. So our wet ingredients, I have 1 cup of buttermilk. To that, I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of maple extract. And to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of real maple syrup. Now, it's important to use real maple syrup because it has a much better flavor than imitation maple syrup. We're going to get that all mixed up. And now we're going to add this to our dry ingredients with the butter. There we go. And we're going to get this all mixed up until it's well combined. Now this is going to be a bit loose, and that's okay. We're going to put a little flour on our board here. Dump that out. There we go. So now that we have our ball, it's time to roll it out. And that's where I kind of change up my scone making from normal scone making, is that I'm going to roll this into a 12-inch by 12-inch square. So I'm going to square up my ball. I'll put a little more flour on there so it doesn't stick. I'm going to roll this out into a 12-inch by 12-inch square. Let me square this up again and roll this out just a little bit farther. There. I think we got it. There we go. 12 inches by 12 inches. So now that we have that, we're going to fold this into thirds. And this is where we're going to get those wonderful tender layers. We're going to fold that in thirds. And then fold this over in thirds. Oops, I'm kind of sticking a little bit today. And I'm going to fold this into a third, and then the other direction in a third. And don't worry if it's kind of sticky and kind of coming apart. It'll still work out when we go to roll it again. So we've handled this dough. So it's time to get it in the freezer and get it chilled down, because we want to keep that butter as cold as possible. Put that on my plate here. So I put this on a floured plate, and I'm going to put this in the freezer for about 5 minutes. While our dough is in the freezer, we're going to get the filling part of our scone together. So I have 1 tablespoon of melted butter, and I'm adding 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup. And we'll get that mixed up, and that's going to go on our scones. So it's been 5 minutes. And now we're going to get our dough out. It's nice and cold in the freezer. Put some flour on our board here. Lay that out. There we go. There. And just try to pat it into somewhat of a square. Put this off to the side here. So we're going to roll this out into another 12-inch square. Let's roll that out. Let's see how we're doing here. We have 12 inches by 12 inches. Perfect. So now I'm just going to square it up just a little bit more. Make sure it's nice and square for our scones. Over there. So remember the 1 tablespoon of melted butter and the 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup. It's time to put that on here. And to that, remember the bacon, pecan, brown sugar mixture we made? Well, now we're going to put that on our scone, because that's going to be in the middle of our scone. Think of a cinnamon roll with bacon and pecans and butter and maple syrup, brown sugar. That is going to be so good. We want to make sure that these, again, these side pieces get their fair share of bacon and pecans and everything. We don't want them to miss out. So now we have everything, all the good stuff on there. So now it's time to roll it up. You're going to roll it up like you would a cinnamon roll. And sometimes you have to scrape underneath to make sure that's all coming up. And you want to roll this as tight as you can, but again, this is not a yeast dough, so you can't pull it. It doesn't stretch, it'll tear instead. So, and we want to try and keep it our 12 inches wide. Keep on rolling that. Go. All right. So instead of making these into triangle scones, we're going to make them into rolls, like cinnamon rolls, but they're scones. So keep it round. And now we're going to cut it into 12 even pieces. So I measure out where the middle is. And then I measure the middle of this and the middle of this one. What's nice on my scraper here is that I have inches marked on here, so I know how much to measure. So each one of these is going to be 3 pieces, so they're each an inch. Okay, they're all cut and they're ready to go on our parchment lined baking sheet. And the end pieces I always put cut side up. There. Okay. Okay, we have 1 egg slightly beaten, and I'm going to give each one a nice little egg wash. And this will help them get nice golden brown. And you know they're delicious because they have maple syrup and bacon and pecans and brown sugar in them. So they will be golden brown and delicious. Okay. These are all ready to go into a 400-degree oven for about 16 to 18 minutes. Okay, it's been 16 minutes and the scones are finished cooking. And they're golden brown, and I know they're going to be delicious. The first thing we want to do is remove these scones from the baking sheet to cool, so the bottoms don't get overcooked. So we'll slide the scones off the baking sheet onto a cooling rack. That's why we line the baking sheets with parchment. We'll let these cool for about 5 minutes, and then it's time to ice them. Okay, now that the scones have cooled for 5 minutes, let's make the icing. For the icing, I have 1 tablespoon of room temperature butter and 3 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. And we'll whisk those together until slightly combined. Now we'll add 1 cup of sifted powdered sugar, a little at a time. Okay, now we have our maple icing finished, and it's time to ice the scones using an offset spatula. And so now we're going to put the icing on each scone. Okay, now for the last scone. Don't these scones look so delicious with the maple icing on top? But we're not finished yet. Now, I took the 3 tablespoons of cooked bacon I reserved earlier, and I finely chopped them. And so now we're going to sprinkle the finely chopped bacon on the tops of each scone. Now that our scones are done, it's time to try one. Let's see, I think I'll try this one. We'll cut this open. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that look good? We have bacon inside the scone, bacon on top of the scone. We put maple syrup in the dough. We got maple syrup in the scone, and we have maple syrup on top of the scone. This is going to be so good. It's light, it's tender. You can taste the bacon, you can taste the maple. That is really good. For the complete recipe, please go to my website, sconebaking.com. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. Thank you for watching. This is good.